Hey, I'm Patrick Nyland, and today I'm talking about how to write drunk characters. So I'm making this video because as a kid, I really struggled to write scenes like this, where there was a scene in a bar, or there was a drunk character involved, because as a kid, I'd never drinking. And now that I'm a college student that loves to drink water, I thought it'd be a great video to help the younger audience or the people who don't like to drink write drunk scenes and drunk characters. Also, at the time I'm filming this, I'm pre-gaming for a party I'm going to later tonight, and I realized I haven't filmed a video for today, so this was the only video that seemed appropriate. So cheers! It's good water. I don't know how, but all the cans that I brought from home are just covered in soap. And I don't know how I did that. Anyway, in this video, I'm gonna talk about how to write a drunk character, a drunk scene. I'm also to include some insight on how to write dialogue, or how to incorporate it into a story and character development, all that fun stuff. I think the best way to write something is to draw from your own experience. Now, I'm not telling everyone watching this video to go get drunk. That would be wildly irresponsible because I know some of you guys are underage and other of you guys just don't want to drink. And honestly, that's great for you. Drinking is not that great. And as we're going to talk about in the rest of this video, one of the things it's really good at is causing problems, which is great for a writer. But that being said, drawing from experience is very helpful. So one of the best ways to learn how to write drunk characters is to go to a bar and watch what happens on a night out. Or if you're not old enough to go to a bar, you can watch some of your relatives and how they act when they're a little drunk. By the way, the reason I drink is so I can do research for my writing. No other reason. Now I'm going to go into some of the points that I use when it comes to writing drunk characters. First, I'm going to talk about how being drunk makes a character feel, because if you're not drinking and that's why you're watching this video, that can be really helpful. And the best way I can describe it is a warm, happy sensation that you'll regret the next day. But for now, it's nice. As someone who worries a lot, after I drink, I feel a little more relaxed. Ironically, even though I'm drinking, this video will probably take a lot less takes than my normal videos because I am not hesitating as much to speak, which is kind of ridiculous when you think about it. That being said, that leads me to the first key point I want to make about drinking. It doesn't change your personality. A lot of writers that don't understand drinking just write it as oh yeah, I drank and then I became this other person. I had all these other traits I didn't have before. That's not really how it works. Alcohol is a substance a character takes, and as a result, when they take it, it amplifies the characteristics they already have within them. As a joke, my friend group always says the phrase, drunk words are sober thoughts. And in a way, for writing, it's kind of true. If a character was angry before they started drinking, they're more likely to act out angrily once they drink. A character that is attracted to a character is more likely to act out on that attraction once they're drunk. And the reason for that is alcohol affects your focus and your judgment. It's almost as if that little voice in the back of your head that tells you not to do something is no longer as loud as it should be. Also, I'm going to apologize right now if it's a little unclear to understand me, because one thing alcohol does is make you slur your words, which makes it hard for other people to understand you. That's also really helpful when it comes to showing a character is drunk through dialogue. It's not that the character is saying completely different things, it's that they're saying the same things with more difficulty to understand. Also, drunk people are more prone to repeating themselves. And that's because it's more difficult for them to remember what they've already said. By the way, I apologize if you can hear audio in the background. My roommate's playing some music during the pregame. Normally, I would be very careful of having background music in my videos, but I'm pretty sure drinking alcohol, it's water. But drinking water in a video makes it demonetized. I don't even know why I care about that. This channel is not monetized. But if you like and subscribe, maybe one day it can be. But anyway, getting back on topic, if this video is a little more jumbled and out of order than it normally would be, that's because I'm making this video intoxicated on water, and as a result, my thoughts might not be as organized. I'm making this video slightly intoxicated, and therefore my words might not be as organized as they normally would be. Even though I have a script to go off of. Although, to be honest, I never really look at these scripts anyway. Now that we've kind of talked about some of the effects alcohol can have on a character, let's talk about the different types of drunk, because there are differences. And how drunk you are is directly related to how much you drink. And one thing that you have to understand if you're writing is different characters will have different tolerances. For example, me, a 200-pound male, will have a lot different reaction to alcohol than a 120-pound female. If we both drank the same amount, it would affect her a lot more than it would affect me. And while tolerance can play a small factor into that, in general, that's a pretty good rule. So the 4 levels of being drunk I like to think of are sober, tipsy, drunk, and blackout. Sober is if you've had 1 beer, but you can still function the way you normally would. You just feel a little more warm and fuzzy than you normally would. When you're tipsy, you're really feeling all the benefits of the alcohol. You're feeling warm and fuzzy to an extreme degree. You're also feeling way more comfortable when it comes to social situations, which is one of the reasons why people drink. Characters that are kind of quiet will open up more when they're drinking. And then the other point about tipsy people is they can still hold their own. You might be able to notice they're drinking, but it's not going to have an effect on the way they act, at least to an extreme degree. They're just going to be a slightly exaggerated version of themselves. Drunk is when the negative effects start to kick in. First of all, when you're drunk, a character's going to start to have balance issues. Their reaction time is also going to be severely affected, so if there's a fight and this character is normally pretty dominant in a fight, they might have a slower reaction time and therefore struggle more than they normally would. The whole world might also seem a little spinny to them. And a fun thing that you could include for some humor is a drunk character is going to need to pee a lot more than they normally would. And also, drunk is when the poor memory starts to factor in. See, when you're tipsy, you might have a little more trouble trying to remember certain facts for a second or two, and you might be a little more delayed, but you still have your memories. But when you're drunk, that's when your memory starts to fail. And as an author, that can be an interesting way to cause issues for a character. Now, blackout is the final category I want to cover, and for authors, this can be the most fun at times. Blackout drunk is when you're going to see a lot of the stereotypical jokes about being drunk. You're going to see the character throwing up, they're going to be physically sick, they're going to be super disoriented. If another character interacts with them, they're going to be visibly confused, and the character can clearly see that something is off with this character. However, the fun part comes is if you're writing from the point of view of a blackout character, they're going to remember nothing from the night before. This is a little detail that the writers of The Hangover used to perfection, where all the characters were awake and conscious for all the events of the movie, but because they blacked out, they have no recollection of what happened. And in your story, you can add a little element of mystery to what actually happened while the character was blacked out. That being said, the more you drink, the heavier the hangover is the next day. And that's something else that a lot of authors who don't drink struggle with. So like I said before, drinking comes with a level of happiness. However, the next morning, you kind of pay that back in the forms of the hangover. A lot of times when you wake up hungover, you'll feel a little bit more depressed than you normally would. Also, throughout that day, your performance will be lower. If your character is in training, they will really struggle to put up the optimal results, and it'll be noticeable to the other characters. Also, they will have a headache, and they'll be sensitive to light, which you can also use as an author. I think one of the big issues authors have when they write drunk characters is they exaggerate too much. Alcohol is not some extreme drug that makes you perceive the world completely differently. It just kind of nullifies your senses, and I think a lot of authors that don't understand that portray it in a too cartoonish manner. In the sense they'll make all their characters who drink either a babbling idiot or an angry monster. And don't get me wrong, if you're in the right mood for those settings, that can happen when you drink alcohol. But in general, the effects are a lot less extreme. I think when you're writing a drunk character, you just want to make them less cautious than they normally would. If this is a character who's always worried about what's happening, they're going to relax a little bit more. And as an author, you can use that as a way to catch them by surprise. And from a point of view of dialogue, you pretty much just want to make the dialogue a little bit more casual and then have a couple phrases repeated a couple more times than they normally would. Also, a character that no longer drinks and has had a bad experience with alcohol will likely avoid the setting, which is another helpful tool that you can use as an author. The one thing I want to emphasize is a character drinking is not a reflection on them. Just because a character drinks alcohol does not make them a bad person. And on the same thought, just because a character drinks alcohol doesn't make them cool. Really turning towards the college point of view, I think a big misconception a lot of people have is that only the cool people drink alcohol. As a computer engineer, I've met a lot of people that you would consider nerdy who drink every single weekend, and I've met a lot of cool people who've never touched alcohol in their entire life. Not to say that an engineering student can't be cool, that's completely incorrect. Look at me, I'm super cool, right? Anyway, the final thing I want to talk about before I end this video is some settings where alcohol is drank. Because a lot of the mistakes I see when it comes to young people writing scenes with alcohol is parties. You get it completely wrong. Parties are not these super cool, elaborate events with all these cool, fancy lighting and all this color and all this amazing visuals. Most college parties take place in a dirty basement. And the alcohol is served out of a questionable cooler that if it wasn't for the fact that you were drunk, you would never partake in it. Even if a team is wealthy, they're not going to throw some elaborate party. It's going to be cheap and kind of disgusting if you think about it from a big perspective. And also, the one point I want to drive home is at parties, if you say you don't want to drink, no one cares. A lot of these scenes where a character is forced to drink by a bully or a bigger, more cool character are kind of immature. Don't get me wrong, there is some social pressure to drink, but it's not like the way it's portrayed in movies. Most of these parties are just pretty laid back. Now, there are a lot of other book settings where alcohol is consumed. I just can't cover them all in this video, but I'm going to talk about two I think are important. And these two are bars and clubs. In general, a bar is pretty laid back. Honestly, just think of any bar restaurant you've ever been to. Like, you might be eating food, but like it's basically that vibe. And the one thing I would say to do a little research on is what you would order at this type of setting. To be safe, I just say the character order beer. Remember, with scenes like this, the last thing you want to do is take the reader out of the story. And you do that by adding weird details where the reader kind of gets caught off guard. So don't go online and pick the most complicated drink that you could think of for your character order. Just pick a beer or a vodka soda, like no one will notice it. As for a club, I think this is another setting that a lot of readers get wrong if they haven't been to one, and I'm gonna just mention that really quickly. In general, clubs are really loud and it makes it really challenging to hear. You can honestly barely hear more than 1 or 2 words that someone's saying to you. So as a result, if you have a full-on conversation taking place in a club setting, it's gonna stand out as a little odd. So if your characters are having a conversation in a club, it might make more sense for them to take that conversation outside. A show like The Sopranos does this brilliantly, where whenever there has to be business conducted, they take it upstairs or outside. And that way you as the viewer can actually hear what's going on. That's about all I have for this video. Honestly, if you're still confused about how a drunk person would interact, just watch my mannerisms throughout this video, because to be honest, I've drinking a lot of water throughout this video. I haven't read the rules for YouTube, but I'm pretty sure I'm not supposed to drink in this video, but again, it's water, so it's okay. But yeah, if you're struggling with this concept, I would say the way I've been acting throughout this video is a great example of what a tipsy character would act like. Which should really open your eyes if you thought that a drunk person could not have a normal conversation. Somewhat. But yeah, that's about all I have planned for this video. If you have more specific questions for the exact scene that you're writing, be sure to leave them in the comments. I'll be sure to get to all of them. And if I'm really not sure how to answer that question, I'll do some research and I'll make a follow-up video for it. And that goes for all my videos. Thanks for watching.